Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and interesting things we're looking at Atopodentatus. Fun name. I have only one model, the Dinosaur model, so it's a cool story here. This guy is special because it is a marine reptile. Now, normally when I'm teaching, I will say marine reptile, and a little 6-year-old hand will go up, and I'll go, yeah, you have a question? And then they say, yes, my dad's a marine. I say, that's really cool, thank you for your service, but we're talking about marine reptiles. And then the hand will go back up again and say, yes, he serves in the Army. And then I have to say, well, the Army and Marines are separate military forces of the United States of America, but again, thank you for your service, but on the topic at hand, looking at marine reptiles. Now you're saying, wait a minute, Jurassic James, didn't you already do a video of marine reptiles? Yes. But to recap real quickly, marine reptiles of the Mesozoic era are animals like the short-neck pliosaurs, this being the collect ape model for chronosaurs, the long-neck plesiosaur, Elastosaurus from Carnegie, the short-neck plesiosaurus from Papo. So these guys are close relatives. The ichthyosaur, this is a safari ichthyosaur, and basically the name ichthyosaur means fish lizard. And of course, these are some of the well-known ones. The other guy we have here is the mosasaur. This is a safari tylosaurus. So when people think marine reptiles, they think of these guys. But to point out that these guys have no modern descendants. The relatives of mosasaurs include lizards and snakes, like a Komodo dragon here, and snake. And so they're not descended from mosasaurs, they're just cousins. But there are other marine reptiles that I not normally talk about. One of them is this group called Placodonts. And Placodonts is an example of one hidden dose, which is not a turtle. It looks like a turtle, it's convergent evolution. These guys evolved around the same time as our modern turtle ancestors. But the idea is that they have the same structure, they're not from the same lineage. And of course we have the nothosaurs. Now I will be doing a video on nothosaurs in general. I have like 2 models here. But Jurassic World is coming out with one from Camp Cretaceous, so I'm waiting for that to come out in stores. So you'll see that video coming up at some point. In the meantime, these marine reptiles. Now, why is this so important to us? The plesiosaurs, the ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs are all different branches of reptile that went into the ocean, basically, right? And what's really cool is that the Placodonts are different groups too. Now, it is believed that the nothosaurs evolved into plesiosaurs, but we have multiple groups of reptiles going into the ocean. Why is that important? We see the same pattern with mammals. Out of toys this time. It's a big concept. So for example, when you think of marine mammals, there's cetaceans, which are whales, or baleen whales and dolphins in particular, or toothed whales. We have manatees, and we have essentially otters and seals. Now to be fair, otters and seals aren't fully marine because they can go back and forth on land, whereas these guys can't, but they are all different branches of a mammal that went to the ocean. For example, the closest relative of whales are somewhere between hippos and pigs. Manatees are related to elephants, and the seals and otters are related to essentially ferrets, safari tube, and of course, your honey badgers, your wolverines, those guys. And so, again, we have different branches of mammal going to the ocean. There are different branches of reptile going to the ocean as well. Now, where does that come in with our guy here? And clear a path real quick. Okay. Well, first and foremost, we'll get the box real quick and see what's cool about it. This guy, and I won't lie, I knew of it, this genre, very lightly. And at first appearance, I thought it was a nothosaur because they are contemporaries. It could be a different branch of them, but for further research, I see actually it's a different kind of animal. But let's open it first with the official scissors of Jurassic James. It just opens, right? Okay, yes. So, empty box. Like all pianists and figures, there's a little booklet. It opens up with various languages. So again, it's just information and instructions on it in various languages. But the figure itself is in here. I very rarely keep the boxes of figures if they have a box, but the PNSO ones I feel like I should. close enough. Now, oh, good condition. So here we have the animal. Now, where it's from is from early Jurassic China. So one thing to point out, I did a Listersaurus video a while ago, and we see the Great Dying, the Permian Triassic extinction event, where most of life on Earth was wiped out. Within 8 million years of that, we have this guy in Loping, China. So what's going on there is when they first found the site, they found really great fossils. Think a coelacanth that was actually found with eggs inside, that was pregnant. There was our friend Dinosaur, which I did a video on that guy. There were nothosaurs. This is a Jurassic ichthyosaur model, but there were early ichthyosaurs there. Not relatives or ancestors, and crustaceans, and bivalves. So this is the environment it was found in. A very rich environment. The big deal with that is, after the Great Dying, after the Permian extinction event, we have been trying to, this site, within 8 million years, which is not a lot for humans, but not a lot for the Earth, a complete ecosystem we could study, right? So, the main thing to point out is, of course, we know about our invertebrates, these guys here. We have our fish, of course. But within the world of vertebrate, Triassic is really neat because the question is, I've always mentioned how the Triassic period has a lot of interesting life forms that, the dinosaurs show up at the end, and then, pretty much take over on land throughout the Jurassic Cretaceous. But in the Triassic, in the oceans and land, we have all these different kind of life forms. And what's really neat about that is that it's reptiles. After the Permian extinction, were the therapsids, the quote mammal-like reptiles, bad name, the actual mammal ancestors, those guys are wiped out almost entirely. And then the reptiles themselves are going like, wait, let's try to expand and find, not consciously, of course, but the idea is that they're spreading out and trying different things out. So I've mentioned how cool he is in the previous video. What makes this guy stand out is his mouth. Now, looking at it now, it's like a Hoover vacuum cleaner. And before I go there, I'll mention the first discovery. So when they first found a skull, there's only 3 specimens known. We have this kind of vacuum cleaner mouth, but the first skull was crushed, so it was like this. So the teeth are like needles, and it appears like a zipper or something. It was really unusual. And so paleontologists, having just that one specimen at the time, was like, how do we interpret this? What does it eat? So, because anytime you see a mouth that specialized, it's unique, right? And so the first thought was, looking at the teeth, there are pterosaurs in South America in the Cretaceous period. They have these like long teeth going up to filter food out of the water. So they're assuming that this guy was filtering like crustaceans and small things in the first paper. Of course, a few years later, they find 2 specimens, and their faces are like this. Now, the only animals that exist that we're familiar with that fight this are, 1, hammerhead sharks, but the shark's mouth isn't that wide. It's just the head's that wide. Another relative is that it's called a Nigersaurus. Now, Nigersaurus is a Diplodocus descendant or relative in Africa, or the Cretaceous period. Now, this toy does not show it fully, but the mouth also comes out and kind of goes flat like this, right? And so, of course, it's an herbivore. So the idea was like, well, what animal eats like this? Because other animals that are like it are all carnivores. They're eating bigger fish and things like that. And so we looked at the modern marine reptiles. And so, for example, you've heard of iguanas. In Galapagos, we have land iguanas. And in Galapagos, we have marine iguanas from the Galapagos tube. Also, we have some marine reptiles, like we have sea turtles, some of which eat sea jellies, other ones eat like seaweed stuff, land tortoises. So again, there are terrestrial versions, but marine herbivores of these groups. So comparing this guy to modern ones, we're like, well, it's like a marine iguana. Like, this, as far as lifestyle goes, that's the closest analogous to it. It is this herbivore who can go onto land, well, not really far in, but kind of go on the coast, swim back in the ocean, and eat stuff. Now, another example we have of this is the Atopodentatus, which again, prehistoric croc tube on safari. And this guy, this model can't really see it, but the mouth is very flat. So it's, of course, you see the same thing with the manatee with a flat mouth because they're eating the food on the water, eating the plants in the water. So the assumption is this guy will be chomping down with these needle-like teeth and eating these plants. So that was a big deal, this guy's discovery. As far as the model goes, I only have one. This is the only one I have. But I can tell you that, given the preservation method of the specimen, it is in very good condition. So we can see the overall body. It's like 3 feet long. I'm not 3 feet long, 3 meters long. And the idea is that the skull, if you ever see a picture of the skull, it's just like this. It's just, take that and flatten it. And you say, wait a minute, why did the first skull, instead of having a flat mouth, have like this? Well, the science of taphonomy. So what's going on is that it's a Russian word because think of it, you think of fossils, the animal dies, it's fossilized, but between death and fossilization, things can happen. And so finally studies that. So in some cases, the skull can be, well, the rock could be twisted and turned and crushed together, so it may have fallen a certain way, got buried, and got bent down like that. That's the only way we can explain it. The problem, of course, is we only have 3 specimens, and to define an entire species on 3, it's enough scientifically, but to understand the ecology, the environment, the growth, the ontogeny, that takes more specimens found. Plus, marine herbivores that are like backbone animals, tetrapods, very rare. I just told you a few. I mean, think about. I mean, we have whales and dolphins who kind of took it far. We have seals and manatees, but again, out of all the mammals, most of them are like rodents, right? They're not in the ocean. Out of all the reptiles, most are on land. They're not in the ocean. So this is a very unusual trait to have, and this guy shows it really well. Excuse me. In the early Triassic period, this guy is filling in a niche, a very important job in the environment. Nothing else really after that. I mean, in fact, this guy here, this is early Triassic, this is late Triassic. So of course there is same job, but the idea is that this is a very unusual thing to happen. So if you do want to get, I mean, I know most people want T-Rex, but if you do want to get a very unusual, unique, special specimen, I will say this one. This is the only one I know of this group. I've searched again and again. There are like, what do you call it, paleo art of this, but not actual models. So again, very cool thing to point out here. And the name actually means unusual teeth. Denta, I mean, you know, always see dentin, dentist tooth. But again, these guys have these little, you can't quite see it here because they're so small in real life, but if you look at the mouth really close, you can see that there's these tiny little teeth in there. And again, they usually use modeling clay. Well, not like Play-Doh, and they put little toothpicks to represent the teeth. They're just that small and fine. So the idea is that this guy is really having a very specialized diet, a very specialized situation, and it's a very important part of this rebuilding of the world in the late Triassic, in the Triassic period after the late Permian. So why that's so special to us? Because in the big picture, we're seeing this great die-off, life rebounds, and we see a full ecology there. And by late Triassic, it's another extinction event, and then life rebounds again, basically. Now, it's not as big as the Permian extinction event, but still, this guy's showing that life will find a way. I know, very cheeky. But anyway, so cool model. Like I said, I would tell you, like I said, looking at the hands, 5 digits on the hands, forelimbs, hind limbs. Note how they are flatter. So we see in their cousins, there it is, Nothosaurs. So these reptiles, they're not quite fully marine. Like we have ichthyosaurs that have full flippers. There are some Nothosaurs with full flippers, but these guys also are depicted with more like kind of like a seal, where there's a hand, or there's still a sense that you can probably go onto land a little bit, maybe in the shallows, maybe in the right on the water line, but again, not going off into the forest for long distances. Basically, that's what the argument is for this guy in particular. But the idea is that this animal shows those traits, and the long tail is more flattened again, and like reptiles, unlike swimming wise, mammals go up and down, they undulate. Reptiles essentially go side to side, and fish go side to side. So having this model turn like this, and it's an action pose. So the idea it was swimming. There's maybe food available or something, and it's turning to grab something, or evading a predator. We don't know. But the idea is that that's why you see these flattened limbs, and we see this undulating kind of turning body like that. So a really cool model, really good example. I encourage you to get one if you like unusual Triassic oddities. But again, I like the fact that this kind of toy is available, because it encourages toy makers to give you more original, different species. I appreciate T-Rex and Triceratops, but I'm tired of getting one new one every year. I want to see something that's really different, really unique. And that's kind of why I'm not really big on the hybrid creatures in Jurassic World, because there's so many unusual or neat, or not unusual to us, because we're used to one type of life form or here and there, that are out there in the fossil record that no one knows exist. So when I mentioned Shringosaurus, or I mentioned this guy, or other things in the Triassic, Dinosaur, I'm saying this is a really cool thing that happened in the Triassic. They have no modern equivalent. It happened. It filled a role. It was replaced by other animals that were more familiar to us today. That's why it's so cool. So again, I encourage you to buy one of these guys, get your own, and I'll see you next week. We're going to do Quetzalcoatlus, actually. Kind of fun one there. That being said, I'll see you guys.